Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Javi. Today I'm going to be doing a overview slash example, because it's not a how-to, more of a tell how on how to build a simple roof rack that cost much cheaper than a Prinsu, because I just looked it up and they're now $850. This entire setup cost me roughly $250. It's not that complicated. We'll start from the easiest part down to the hardest part. So subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. We do have an upcoming series I've been working to put together, and it rhymes with off-road trailer. So if you want to see that, go ahead and subscribe. Well, let's get started talking about the roof rack. Now, starting off with our side pieces here. These are 1/4 inch by 2 inch tall pieces of aluminum. I used aluminum because it's lightweight, it doesn't rust, and 1/4 inch is plenty strength for what we need. Next up is these T-Nuts 47 inch crossbars. I'll link these in the description below. Basically, they are 47 inches long, which is equivalent to a Prinsu. These are actually what replacements you can buy for a Prinsu. And then all we did was slap the two pieces of aluminum together on each side, clamp them together, drill holes so the holes are equally distant on each side, and then you just bolt these T-Nuts into them. They come tapped on the end for 1/4 inch bolts. We're using 1 inch long 1/4 inch bolts to go into here, and it's perfectly strong. And now you have basically a roof rack. All you have to do is now attach it to the cab. So when you build the square rack, you then have to mount it to your cab, and that is much easier than initially thought. So all you take is some, in my case, 3 inch by 3 inch, 1/4 inch thick angle iron. And the reason for that is because this gives you enough space to adequately raise or lower the roof rack depending on the height you want, and enough to meet your mounting points on your truck. So here's a good example of what it looks like. We have the angle iron moving into the channel and the mounting holes below. Now, I have learned from reading on forums that these mounting holes are not consistent. That Toyota wasn't very consistent with them, so some are closer together, some are farther apart, some are actually uneven like this. You're going to have to pull up your trim here and check for your own. It'll be a covered sticker. And as you can see, we just then mount the angle iron to our roof rack. And it's very simple. The cheeky way to do this is you kind of cut some bigger holes. You drill bigger holes than your bolts, and that gives you more room to sit there and wiggle it and make it work. So we have same thing here in the front. As you can tell, these are much closer to the base than they are the end here, and that's because the roof line tapers out. You'll have to factor in for that. So this is what it looks like outside the cab. So you do have your angled pieces, and then on the back side it is much less because of the way the roof is shaped. So it's very simple to put this together. Now, a Prinsu rack does have a center mounting point right about here. Now, I do not have one because I don't need it. I've tested this. I can stand on these bars. I don't have any issues, but the most weight up there is a solar panel, an awning, and traction mat, or traction, those things. Traction boards on the other side, so I'm not worried about it. So you put this together, you buy your aluminum, you buy your T-Nuts, your crossbars, and you mount them together with your simple 1/4 inch bolts. Now these are 1 inch long for more security in that bar. You build it together, now what? Now you have to mount your L brackets, your angle iron here. How do you mount that? Well, we told you we drill the holes a little bit bigger so you have some more wiggle room. And I'll throw up an animation of here of what that kind of looks like, because you want to be able to slide the bracket left to right to fill in this 47 inch gap. It's much easier if you have that, because these holes down here, the ones into the truck, those don't change moving forward or back. So once you get those slotted, it's easy. And then you just cut a little slot, like I said in this animation, and it'll make it a little bit easier. So the next question I had when I was building this is hardware. You know, Prinsu, they use spacers. I didn't know how big of a spacer to go with, what they recommend, what bolts recommended for this. So I called Prinsu and I bought their hardware kit. It was about $20 and they sent me the spacers, the bolts, washers, everything. And I'm pretty sure they're stainless steel because I've not had any issues with rust. But basically, you can see here in the back, we're not using any washers, we're just using their spacers. And then up here, we are using a couple of washers to raise it up off of this right here because it got a little close for comfort and I wanted the height to be relatively level. So I think if I level this out, it's pretty even when the truck is even, of course. As you can see, my paint's flaking because I didn't prime this well. I just kind of scuffed it up, I think, with sandpaper, one layer, and then bedlined it, and it's held up for 3 years, so that's kind of cool. Next up is your wind fairing, because if you build this and do not include a wind fairing, you will have awful, awful wind noise that you'll immediately take the roof rack off until you make a wind fairing, because it makes the whole roof like this. It just doesn't sound good. So this up here is a 1/4 inch thick piece of aluminum that I bent to match the curve of the roof line somewhat. We put some of this weather seal rubber on here to protect the paint and to sandwich it up against the roof line. Mounted with some more aluminum. These were scrap aluminum pieces with just brackets I hand bent because aluminum's much easier to bend. These are probably only 1/8 inch thick. That's what they are. And of course you can just mount them to your crossbars because you have access to them all over. Now, there's so many options of different ways you can do this. This is the way I did it. It's simple, it works, and it's worked forever. Of course, you do have exposed bolts up front. It's grown on me quite a bit. I mean, I built it, so obviously I'm incredibly biased, but it cut down the wind noise 100%. There's actually no audible difference for me between a roof rack on and a roof rack off. I've tested that extensively and I've not had any issues. Now, of course, after you build, you have so many options of what you can add. You can add awning lights here that point down for camp. You can add a solar panel on top. You can add traction board mounts, an awning. The possibilities are quite endless. Huge perk of these T-nuts is that they fit 1/4 inch carriage bolts that you get from Lowe's or Home Depot, just like this. And this square part of them fits perfectly in this track so it doesn't spin. That's what we're using here. It's what we use to mount pretty much everything, including this box. And you can do this much cheaper than a $900 roof rack. Is it as pretty? Obviously not. There are some links I can put below where people cut their own metal and they buy it and have, I think, a professionally laser cut to look like a Prinsu. If you want to go that route, that adds cost significantly. It probably doubles the cost of this roof rack. But it's not complicated. It's not hard. Of course, I built another roof rack for my topper, which that one was more complicated because the mounts weren't even. But that's a whole nother video at some point, maybe. Depending if y'all want to see it, let me know. But I believe that's it. It's really legitimately only about 4 different components. You have your side pieces, which you drill holes in for your crossbars, which is another component, so that's 2 right there. Bolts, easy together, it's like adult Legos. Then you have your angle iron, which is pretty simple on how to mount it to your truck once you look into it. Of course, I would love to show you how to do it, but I can't rip all this up. I already weather sealed all these bolt holes. You know, put the caulk in them, make sure nothing comes out. So they're not coming out, and I don't want any leaks in this truck. And that's it. It's simple to make. It doesn't take very long. You can do this probably in roughly, first time, 4 hours. Generous. It's not complicated. It's not difficult. You're basically only using a drill as your only power tool. But you just want to make sure of a couple things, is that your side pieces are aligned when you drill. You drill your holes, you mount them together, that makes your square rack, and then you just get your mounting feet right, which that's probably takes the longest time. And then of course, when you mount into there with that Prinsu hardware, you want to use some sealant, and a lot of it, to make sure you have no leaks, because that is the biggest problem. The holes are threaded. You just bolt it in and don't over torque it. Just do it tight. You know what you're doing. You're not dumb. I believe in you. Overall, highly recommend you do it. It adds a ton of functionality to your truck. And like I said, this entire setup, generously with current metal prices, I'm gonna say it's probably under $300. And then, you know, your fairing, if you make your own, if you get one from Prinsu, you can do whatever you want with that. But I recommend you do keep a fairing, because the wind noise is just, it's ridiculous. It honestly is awful. But other than that, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.